So for today's yoga practice, we are going to be unwinding and opening up our body, and it's going to be a lot of hip work and a lot of twists. So if you are sitting throughout your workday all day like this, and you're kind of rounding your shoulders forward, you're sitting back on your tail, this is going to be a really good practice to open you up. Also, if you have scoliosis or any curvature in your spine, this is really going to bring you nice and upright. So yoga props that we will need today are a set of yoga blocks. If you don't have yoga blocks, you can use 2 uniform size books, but make sure to get you some cork or wooden yoga blocks. Next, we will want a strap. If you don't have that, you can use a scarf. And then we also want a pillow, a blanket, and a bolster. And if you don't have a bolster, you can use the edge of a couch pillow that looks like this. Something with some good height to really bring your entire body back onto. So as I mentioned, we're going to do a series of back bends and twists just to open and unravel everything throughout the spine. And we want to envision that all of our muscles surrounding our spine are straightening out and lengthening around the bones. So this is a bones-based practice, and we are rewiring the circuitry within our systems, aka our organs, to allow for a smoother function for one organ to feed another, and for a direct path up our spine to allow for more clarity and a smoother path to just live in our bodies and bring joy in our bodies and to function properly while maintaining a good posture. And this can carry over into your workday if you're doing this in the morning, or it can help you sleep more efficiently as you now have a nice direct path for your spine, for all of the nerves to travel up into the brain. So with that being said, we're going to start with the supported back bend. I love fish pose so much. And if you've done any of my yoga practices, I basically incorporate it into every practice. So we have 3 settings of our yoga block. We have the low setting, the medium setting, and the high setting. So right behind the shoulder blades right here, we're going to place a block on its medium setting. And then right behind the head, depending on how tight you are, the tighter you are, the higher you want your yoga block. So I usually start with a medium setting, and after a few minutes, I put it down on its low setting. So I'm actually going to use the strap around my knees first to make sure that I am nice and anchored and one leg's not splaying out. So I would prefer if you had a buckle strap to use that. I'm going to use this right here. I'm measuring 2 fist distances in between my knee. That's going to ensure hip distance apart. So first I'm going to have one yoga block medium setting right behind my shoulder blades. And this is going to be a really, really intense opener if you've never done it before. There's a lot of progressions from this. So we really want to make sure that we're starting with this position with a good setup from the get-go in terms of where we're grabbing our elbows and so on. So I'll direct you through it. So now that I have the block underneath my shoulder blades, I'm going to put the second block right behind my head. And we're going to grab each side of the block, put it under the head, and make sure your elbows are maintaining towards the sky. Try not to splay out too much with your elbows. And we're just going to position ourselves right here for a few moments. And what we're going to start to do is we're going to start to take slower breaths. So really try to envision right from the base of your pelvis. You're inhaling all the way from down. You're inhaling all the way down from the base of your pelvis, just like a beaker. Inhale all the way up your spine to the crown of your head. And then exhale nice and slow down the back. And just allow for everything to come to your front body. You're opening up your front body. And whenever you're ready, we're going to grab each opposite elbow. Really try to fit your elbow right in the center of each palm. And then you're just going to bring your arms back as far as they allow you to go. Try to bring your arm bones right in line with your ears, but don't force it if you're not ready to go there yet. Oops. If you're not ready to go with your arms next to your ears, don't force it. Just do the best that you can. And the longer your inhales and exhales, the further your muscles will just relax You'll feel some of the tension dissipating. So something that's really helpful is trying to count your inhales. How many seconds does it take you to fill up your body with the inhale? And same for the exhale. Try to have a nice pause in between each, the inhale and the exhale. With each breath, we want a longer inhale and exhale. The longer our breath, the slower our heart rate, the more we can think with space. We're not focused on shallow breathing or tensing up anywhere. We're not forcing anything. We're right where we need to be. I need to adjust my head block. There we go. So by having the legs strapped, for me it's right above the knees. I have my toes slightly pointed inwards, my heels slightly pointed out, making sure, again, one foot's not too drastically in front of another. So we're starting with our hips in their alignment right here. And same with the shoulders and our arms. Our arms are our competency. They're also our lungs. Our arms are framing the lungs here. So if we have a nice open arm right next to our ear, we're framing the lungs. We're focusing on taking those fuller deep breaths, really filling in the lungs. With each inhale and each exhale, we're just loosening up the muscles that are in the back. So really try to send the breath to all of your tight spaces here and just let yourself be. The purpose is to stay in these poses longer than what you would like, because that's where the muscles start to unravel. And if we're not used to doing this, we're just going where we don't go too often. It's really important to maintain some of these uncomfortable positions because it's just showing us where we're overworked. And again, a lot of us are sitting on our tails and rounding our upper backs at work. And so we're just mitigating our hunchback that could become later on. We're using the tools now to prevent issues that could occur later on. So now I'm going to put my block on its lower setting. And if you feel called to do so, you can do the same thing. We want to make sure that we can still swallow here. And we're going to switch the arm in which you are crossing over top. So for me, I think it was I can't remember. Don't mind my cats. So if you're feeling this mostly in the shoulders, again, just send your breath to the shoulders. Don't force anything. Just focus on your breath. Very good. Now we're going to create like a little symmetry in our hands here. We're going to interlace our palms and just reach back as far as you can. Sending a few more breaths. Try to get the pinky side heel of your hands together. Again, we're framing up the lungs here. Really shoot back. Letting the muscles in the mid-back just dissipate. Allow for them to just be. Try not to tense up too much. Try to focus on, again, lengthening your inhales and your exhales. From here, we're just going to come back up. You can hold the back of your head to support it as you're coming up. And then just come up. So right there, first pose, that's our back bend in fish pose. So pretty crazy. So next we're going to do a reclined virasana, and what that's going to entail, we want to make sure that when we're interlacing all of our fingers, we're even getting the pinky side of our fingers interlaced. So we're not having it sloppy here. I'll show you. We're going to keep our knees strapped or scarfed together, but we really want to make sure that our pinky side of our hands are interlaced as well. And now we have this nice 90 degrees within our thumbs. We're actually going to put that right in between our shoulder blades. And that's one of the cool fits and folds that we have, is 2 thumb distances away is the distance of our shoulder blades. And if we're not there yet, that's okay. Try to work towards it. So now we're going to need our bolster. And if you need to use a couch pillow, that's totally fine, or a piece from your couch. And what I do with this is I actually put a blanket on top of a pillow and then put it on there. And then we're going to take 2 of our yoga blocks. We're going to put it on each side. So maybe right along your mat, because this is going to be where our elbows are resting. And so what we're going to do, if it's not available to you today, to keep your knees bent like this and go all the way back, you can just have your legs straight out in front of you. Again, try to have your knees strapped though, because that's going to hold your leg bones where they need to be within your hip joint. So we really don't want any splaying out here. That's a really important key. So make sure that we're setting the foundation up in these poses properly, so we're not compensating later, because then that will defeat the whole purpose of the practice. So again, if it's available to bend your knees like this, and then to clasp your hands, making sure the pinky and the pointer fingers are all intact, we're just going to lean back onto our bolster and allow for our elbows to rest on this yoga block. And now this is just bending our back in a different way. It's opening our chest up, our lungs. Again, we want to start with open lungs, so that way we can really use our breath as efficiently as possible. We really want to lengthen our inhales and our exhales as we're breathing. We're acting as if we're filling up the lungs and the back of our body as much as we can. We're really breathing out everything out of the lungs and sending that space to all of the tightness wherever we may be tight. So here, our neck is nice and straight. We're really thinking about creating space from the knees to the head. We're not pushing our head back like this, but we're looking straight up above us. So reclined Virasana. Really good to open up the chest and the shoulders. You'll be able to tell if your shoulders are tight just from these 2 poses right here. So yeah, if we have scoliosis, I have scoliosis, but I am fused with a fusion. I have a metal rod on each side of my back. And so my doctors say I'm fused twisted, but if you have a pretty severe case of scoliosis, it'll usually be that one hip and the opposite shoulder is affected. So it'll be like one shoulder is more raised and the other hip is more forward, or vice versa. And so we're just lengthening out the spots in our lower back and our hips, almost like a self-adjustment, because that will lead to our shoulders, and the same patterns that are going on in our lower back present themselves in our neck area. So if we have one hiked up or hiked forward hip, then the same shoulder may be impacted. And it's usually like one shoulder and the opposite hip are feeling a little wonky when we have scoliosis. So really try to lengthen your inhales and your exhales. We're opening up the heart here. Very good. And then to come out of this pose, we're just gonna sit up. You can use your elbows, your hands to push off the couch. Excellent. And now we're just gonna bring some fluidity into our spine so we can undo our strap. We're gonna start off with some cat-cows. First, get into our table pose. So a table holds 90 degrees. So this is our angles within our liver. So we have 90 degrees within our arm bone and torso, and 90 degrees within our hip bone and our legs. So to measure out your hips being hip distance apart, we want to put 2 fists in between our knees And then to measure out our hands being shoulder distance apart, we want to measure out 2 middle fingers touching one another while our arms are straight, right under our shoulders. Then pivot from your thumbs. So if you have a mirror, this is really, really helpful. That's another prop I forgot to mention at the beginning. Use a mirror. It's going to serve you. Or if you have tape that's colored, you can make a grid from east to west and north to south. And you also want northwest, southeast, and vice versa. So, table pose. We really want to set our foundation up from the get-go again, so that way we're not promoting further habits that we're used to doing within our body. So now what we're going to do is we're going to inhale. We're going to pull our elbows in, back towards our knees. We're going to open our collarbones. We're going to look up. We're going to back bend. Inhale. And then as we exhale, we're going to curl our chin down. We're going to round our back, almost like you're creating a hunchback. And then we're going to go between the two. We want to make sure that our pinky side of the toes are down, and choose a pace that feels good for you right now, whether it's slow or fast. I usually start slow after a fish pose because I'm almost like breaking up some of that tightness that I just felt there. So I start nice and slow. So we're right here in the center as we're looking back and forward. Back and forward. As we're coming forward, remember to have that soft bend in the elbows. And the back dictates our past, our front dictates our future, and we're right here in the center. We're mediating between the two through the present moment. So we are in control of all of our circumstances here. And when we choose to look back and reflect and to forward think closely, as long as we're not holding too closely to one of them, because only thinking too much about the future leads to anxiety, and only looking back too much creates depression. And when we have pain in the front body, that just means we're overdoing it with thinking about the future. When we have pain in the back body, that means we're overdoing it while thinking about past memories and what we coulda, woulda, shoulda done. So again, we are right here in the center. It's okay to use the past and the future to show us what we've learned and what we can look forward to, but we really need to remain present in order to get to where we need to next. Cat-cows are great, again, because we're bringing that fluidity into the spine, the entire spine. And start to go a little bit faster if you're going slow. Don't forget to breathe. Exhale, inhale. Exhale, inhale. Exhale, inhale. Exhale, inhale. We're just breaking up that stiffness before or after a long work day, or if you're about to sit or even stand. Still good just to wake up your body and warm your body up with this movement right here. Awesome. So now, what we're going to do after our cat-cows, we're going to do some hip circles, bringing further fluidity within the hips. So this is a really, really good one to bring water into the kidneys, because the midline, our hips, our lower back, is our kidney. And again, when we're sitting on our tails too long, we are drying out our kidneys and we're overworking. So we really want to bring the water back into our kidneys. The kidneys are the season of winter, and it's really, really, really important to make sure we're moving our hips. Again, we're bringing the waters back into the kidneys. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with one hip coming down to the side, and you can choose which side. We're going to bring it back up, and then to the opposite side, back down, opposite side, up. And as you're going down, you're inhaling. As you're curling up, you're exhaling. So inhale, exhale. Pay attention to which side you're going first. If you need to remeasure your knees or your hands, remeasure them. Notice which side you're spinning, or which direction you're spinning. When we have our hands flat on the floor, make sure that we are pushing through our thumb and our pointer finger. We're not putting too much pressure on our pinky. That pressure in our pinky can be pressure in the heart. So make sure we have nice flat hands, Focus on which direction you're spinning. Look directly in front of you at the edge of your mat if you have one. It's going in all the different directions. Then we're going to go the other direction and see if this side feels stickier or easier for you. I remember when I first started this Katonah yoga, I was not able to go this way. It was crazy. Like I felt so stuck, so awkward, and I would blame my metal rod in my back for not being able to do this, but it was just showing me where I didn't go. In the kidneys, bringing the fluidity, tending to the home. The kidneys are also a lot of our ancestry. It's our basement of our home. I'm gonna go the other way again. And after this, the last thing that we're going to open in relation to our work world is our hands, our wrist. So the wrist are the extension of the arms. And again, the arms are extensions of the lungs. So we really want to open our wrist up. When I work with clients, this is one that they just hate. And it's because a lot of us sit like this all day and we're used to this, but we're not used to opening the wrist. So we're going to measure our hands again because it's really important. And we're only going to flip one wrist around like this. And we want to have a soft bend. If we can't bend our elbow in this backwards position, we really want to elevate it up onto some height. So that's where our pillow or blanket comes into play. So if you have a blanket or a pillow, just roll it up as much as you need. The more tight the wrist, the more height you need. So really elevate your wrist if needed. If you can't flip your wrist all the way, if you're like right here, 45 degrees, elevate your wrist. And you can put your forward wrist under the blanket and your bent wrist on top of the blanket. Again, measure out your hands again. Really have that bent elbow. And then we're creating space away. So we're not sinking into our posture here, but we're just gonna go both directions with our wrist. For me, I don't need the blanket, so I'm just gonna put it back and focus on which direction you're going first. Not which hand, but which direction of the circle, because we're going to go the opposite. So with our hips being the most stable joint in the body, if we have hip issues, it sometimes trickles into our shoulders. And again, wrists can be a sign of tight shoulders. Tight wrists can be a sign of tight shoulders. So if this is really, really hard, then we may have an imbalance in the shoulders. We probably do. So now we're gonna go the other direction for our same wrist. And this is actually pulling, when we're underhand like this, we're pulling our arm and our shoulder blade into the rib cage, into its correct positioning. So what will happen when we have any kind of shoulder limitation or injury or even a hunchback is our shoulder blades tend to wing outwards. They're not set in the correct positioning. So having an underhand reassures that your shoulder blades are in its correct position. So now we're gonna shake this out. Let's sit onto our heels and kind of curl your toes like this if it's available. Middle finger and thumb, we're just gonna place around the bone on your wrist and shake out your wrist. Then we're going to do the other side. Again, notice which side is tighter. So with the sides, now we're on the right side of the wrist, and the right hand is the paternal hand, and that's the side that goes out into the world, makes the deals, takes the risks, signs the checks. And the left side is the maternal. That's the side that stays in, tends to the home, receives the insights. And so notice which one is overused. It will usually be the stronger arm. For me personally, I am right-handed, but my left arm is stronger because it's a little more hiked up due to my scoliosis. So my left side is a little tighter, the maternal. And for me, it's where I actually don't go too often. But for you, it could be where you go too much. And you'll know. Now let's go the other direction with this wrist, and then we're going to go into a downwards facing dog. We're going to implement a twist today. All right, so let's go back into our table pose after we shake out that wrist, like we're shaking someone's hand, very loosely. And we're going to go into a downward dog. So check your knees, check your hands, boop. And what we're going to do is we're going to tuck our toes under, and then we're pushing up through our hips. Our hips are the most stable joint in the body. When we can learn how to use our hips, we can take out some of the muscling of our shoulders. So from here, we really want to bring our heels up. We want to bring our heels out slightly, our toes in slightly. Really bend from the knees a lot. Push your butt up, up, up. We really want to arch the back. And right here, this is already taking pressure off of the shoulders. I'm looking right in between my wrist, and I have my elbows turned in. And again, I have my pointer finger and my thumb down onto the mat. So I'm not putting all of the pressure through my pinky, which again is that heart pressure buildup. I'm really looking forward. And so now what we're going to do is make sure that our hips are nice and level. And I'll show you from the front. We're actually going to do a twist, and we're going to grab, if you can, that opposite heel with our right hand. So we're grabbing our left heel with the right hand. We're looking underneath our left armpit. So right here, we're really breathing into that right lung, the lung in which we're grabbing with that hand. And just feel. We're really pointing down. We're really pushing down with our pointer finger and our thumb, really using our hips, maintaining a nice, stable hip joint. So we're trying not to sink down with one side. So I'll show you what it looks like here. So we really want to push our right hip to its right side as we're doing this. And bring your hand down. And then you can pedal with your feet. Right foot, left foot. You can kind of shift your hips to each side. Then we're going to do the opposite side. Really pull, pull, pull that heel. We're going to pull our right heel now with our left hand. And bring its left hip. Bring your left hip to its left side. Try to make sure that your feet are in line with one another. You're pushing up through the hips. You're really twisting to that one side. You're breathing into that lung. Notice which side is harder to breathe into. We're really twisting the entire body. We're leveraging ourselves by using our heel, by using our own body to create that stability, which is coming from the hips here as we're holding on with one hand. And then we'll come back to our dog pose. Very good. So now we're going to walk our feet to our hands, hands to our feet. We're going to do a wide-legged fold. So we want to crisscross our hands on each ankle here and go out as far as we can. We want to remain slightly pigeon-toed with our heels slightly out. So you can see my feet here are slightly turned in. And then from here, we want to grab our heels. So we're slightly pigeon-toed. We want to fit the heel in the middle of the palm. And then what we're aiming to do is we're pulling ourselves downwards. We're standing our ground here, nice and stable. And we really want the base of our head going down to the ground. And our butt bone is going up. So take some nice deep breaths here. Very soft bend in the knees. So again, you're using yourself to leverage, to create two opposing forces here. Head is going down, butt is going up. You're just pulling yourself into this position here. We don't want to lock our knees out in the down dog and the wide-legged fold here, because then that puts too much pressure on the kidneys. We're already putting too much pressure on the kidneys at work or whenever we're sitting. So we're just mitigating our postures of our day-to-day. All right. So now from here, we're going to do a pigeon pose. So we're going to sit. Well, not quite. We're going to get on our hands and knees. And for this one, we want 3 yoga blocks. So we're going to do a pigeon where we are creating space. So we're not getting swampy in this pose. We're creating space to have our sternum forward and upwards, our head back in line with our body. And we're really, really opening up the hips here. So what we want to do is we want to take one one block on its medium setting. And when we're doing this, we want to have our shin parallel to the edge of the mat. We also want our toes pointed, so not flexed, pointed. Really try to get your shin parallel. Really try. And again, I have this yoga block right underneath where I'm sitting. And this is going to allow for me to bring my left hip down to keep it square on the floor. And then I'm also going to have my yoga blocks aside from me on its medium setting. And I'm bringing my elbows inwards and my sternum is coming forward and upwards. We're not bending from the lower back. I have my head back in space and my left foot has its pinky side toe down. And this is going to be really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And that's okay. It's showing us where we don't go. Our right hip, again, is the paternal. The side that takes the risks, goes out into the world. So here we're taking our nice deep breaths, really unwinding from the hips. A lot of these postures are really in the hips. And we really want to stay for as long as we can and then some, because that's where the muscles start to dissipate, wherever they may be tight. But pigeon pose, this is one of my favorite and elevated. I'll have to take us into more of a, I will today actually, a lower version. All right. From here, we're going to now put our block that's under us on its low setting. Make sure that your toes are still pointed and your shin is still parallel if this is available to you. We're going to bring our blocks down. I actually want to show you a twist in the pigeon pose. So I may actually I'm going to flip sides here so I can show you. So here, we are going to, if this is available, this is pretty advanced. So just keep holding your sternum forward and outwards if you can't do this. But we're going to try to go into a twist. And so what we're doing is we are going to make our low setting block first, and then we're going to put another block on top with our high setting. We're still sitting on the low setting. I'm sitting on a foam block, and we're going to face the knee that is up, and we're going to make a fist with our left hand. If our right leg is up, we're making a fist with the left hand, and then we're bringing the right hand over top, the receiving side, and we're just twisting towards this knee. We're looking into the armpit. Again, this is if your shin is in proper alignment, parallel to the edge of the mat. If it's not, keep working to get that shin parallel. While I'm doing this, that's totally fine. Wherever you are at now is where you need to be. So we're making the discoveries, we're using the information to navigate where we can go further and where needs more space, where needs more information to get to our next point before our destination. Awesome. And you may feel this along the right hip, whether it be glute, upper hip, even inner thigh for some people. And we'll switch sides. So we'll go back into a dog pose. I don't think we started in the dog pose, but we'll go into a dog pose. Really kind of shift everything out. I'm going to flip our block. Boop. Let's point the other way. And we'll come forward. Again, we're sitting here on top of our medium setting. Shin is parallel. Notice which side is tighter. For me, it's this side. And then for me, medium setting of these blocks out to the side, right to our east and our west. Our shoulders are nice and open. Sternum comes forward and up. We're opening our lungs here. Soft bend in the elbows. Pull your elbows in towards your torso, your rib cage. So your elbows are pointing back, your shoulders are pointing forward. Anything underhand or where you're flipping your elbows is always going to be setting your shoulder blades up into its natural positioning. And take some deep breaths. This is setting your lower spine too in a nice wave. We don't want to fix ourselves from the lower back, but more so from the sternum up as we're creating the two opposing forces. With our back right foot going backwards, pinky side toe down. We're taking the pressure off the knee that way. And our sternum up and forward, creating space. And now, same thing, we're gonna come down if it's available to you. And same thing, low side of the block, high side of the block. If you just need to do this, totally fine, totally fine. That's okay, that's where you're at today, and there's no problem with that. Then, make a fist with your right hand, bring it right in front of the knee, rest your head on this block, make a cup with your opposite hand. Have that elbow pointing towards the sky. Take your deep breaths. This just brings your hip that much more square to the floor, as long as you're still maintaining your left butt down. And that's what the block is great for, underneath you. So it's giving you that feedback for where your hips are. Beautiful. Beautiful. So now we'll come back up, downwards facing dog. A lot of our hip stuff today. Really pull your heels up, push through your hips upwards. Make sure that your thumb and your pointer finger are down on the ground as much as your pinkies are. Slight turn out in the heel. Now we're going to take a seat and we're gonna do a stacked logs. So stacked logs, one of two options. If you have the mobility for it, we are going to, I'll show you from the front first. We really wanna make sure this bone that's right on your ankle is on top of this knee, and the other bone is right below that knee. So it's not in like this, it's not a crisscross applesauce. It's out like this. And then another thing, if we can't keep this wave in our lower back, if we're sitting back on our tails, we need to sit up on a chair to do this. So you may need a chair. So here and here. And then you're just going to place your blocks in front of you, and just like the pigeon pose, we're bringing our sternum forward and upwards, pulling our elbows in. This is a stacked log. This is to get us to the shoelace pose, which eventually is going to look like this, shoelace. But first a stacked log. So if you need to use a chair, I'll show you how to do so. We're going to need quite a few blocks for this, as this is more of a modified position for a stacked log. The more tight you are in this position, the more yoga blocks you'll want to use. So right here, I actually have 4 yoga blocks stacked on top of one another. And I'm going to bring the opposite side foot. So first we want to make sure we're in alignment. So I'm nice and forward here on my mat, and these blocks are right next to the edge of my chair. We're going to bring that opposite foot over, flex your toes up, make sure you're nice and square with your hips. So you may have to scoot over a little bit. You may actually have to bring your blocks a little more in. Flex your foot. And then we're going to bring the other foot over top of that knee and just gently push down on that knee, which is up, closest to your face. And then we're just going to push our body forward, and notice how I have a nice little wave in my lower back. So I'm not rounding at all. That really defeats the purpose of the whole exercise. Here, we're gonna get kind of around the side of the hip, almost like your TFL. A lot of people are really tight here from sitting all day. Take some deep breaths. If you're seated on the floor, totally fine. I'll do the next leg seated on the floor. And then your head is back in space. So it's not too forward, it's not here, it's not facing up. We're looking forward with our head back. So our chin is retracted. Still pushing down on this knee. Very good. Again, right when you want to get out of the pose, challenge yourself to stay there a little bit further. That's where the tension will dissipate in the muscles. That's where the bones will start to restructure. The muscles will always repattern around the bones. This is not a flexibility-based practice. Therefore, we're not pushing ourselves where we're not ready to go. And that's the beauty of props. Just like the stacked log, how we need to modify it just to make sure that we are even in the hips. because compensation will lead to further compensation, which will get us hurt. That will force us to over-pull our muscles and to work way less efficiently. So now we'll switch sides. This time I'm going to show you on the floor. So if you still need to elevate yourself, totally fine. If you still need to elevate yourself here, totally fine. I'm going to show this one on the floor. So now we're going to do the other side on the top. So if you had your right foot on the top, go to your left foot. Good, and then make sure your feet are directly over top and underneath one another. Use your yoga blocks to prop yourself up. Hold yourself where you are without using as much muscle to effort through the posture. Sternum comes forward and up, head is back. Elbows are rolled in. And we have that nice wave in our lower back. Take a few moments, creating space in the hips. You may even feel in the bottom leg too. That's okay. And again, we have two opposing forces from our butt to our head, but we also have two opposing forces from each knee. And the further apart we can envision we're pulling the two knees apart without actually moving them, the more space we're creating in that hip joint there. So now, the last pose we're going to go into is a forward fold. We are also going to use blocks and a strap for this. So if you have a buckle strap or a slide through strap, I'm personally using a slide through strap. I still have it set to the beginning postures where we had it right around the knees. We'll want to create that same effect within the strap. So about 2 hip distances apart in between the feet. We're going to elevate our butt back onto some height. Again, we're creating further arch in our lower back, further space, I should say. And we're elevating our butt up. And again, same concept as the downwards dog. We want to have the knees bent in this posture. So I'm going to tighten my strap a little bit more, 2 fist distances away. So if you need to start on higher and then lower, that's totally fine. I'm going to start on the medium setting of my blocks. And now my feet are where they need to be while the strap is remaining around my legs. Oh, another thing is we really want to fit our knees and our armpits here. So I'm actually going to start on the higher setting. So that way I'm setting myself up for the foundation. So I want to set the example here. So bend your knees as much as you need. We're folding into ourselves here. Good. So we really want our head in. We're closing into ourselves here. We're really letting that knee come into the armpit. We really want to focus on lengthening our breaths here. The longer our breaths, the longer we live. We're slowing our heart rate down, which is regulating our nervous system. If you notice, things in the wild tend to live a little bit shorter because they are rapidly breathing. But anything that has a slower breath is able to maintain better heart. Therefore, heart health is one of the dictators of longevity. So we really want to maintain our regulated nervous system through our breath, through our heart rate. And this is going to dictate how we respond to stressors of life. Are we chest breathing? Are we getting anxious all the time? Or are we able to think more clearly because we have that circuitry flowing up our spine how it needs? And instead of reacting, we can respond. So as we're breathing and lengthening our inhales and exhales, send all the space to the tight areas, maybe in your lower back, maybe in your hamstrings, maybe in your feet if they're cramping, maybe in your shoulders, maybe in your neck. Now I'm personally going to go onto my medium setting of my blocks. That's where I'm at. It's really easy to do this pose when your knees are splayed out. It's a whole different experience when you are strapping yourself in.
Again, putting your leg bones in the hip socket where they need to be. Whew, very good.
Made it, y'all. That is all I have for today. I hope you discovered some spaces within your body that felt good and maybe not as much, and hopefully give yourself some incentive to keep showing up to this practice, keep staying consistent, and not to let yourself feel deceived from the tight spaces through emotion, but to really find this information useful to where we need to create further space in our life through the mat, through doing this practice, through applying ourselves in our life, and maybe where we don't want to add too much effort through muscling ourselves. And we're just creating an ease and flow of our life through efficiency and using the information within our navigation systems here. So with that being said, have a great day, y'all, and stay tuned for more.